A single mom gave her taxi seat to a stranger. She had no idea he was a millionaire CEO. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change our lives forever. On a rainy Tuesday morning, Sarah Collins made a choice that seemed insignificant at the time. She gave up her taxi seat to a stranger in a business suit who looked rushed and worried. She had no idea that this simple gesture would completely transform her and her daughter's future. What happened next will restore your faith in humanity and remind you that goodness never goes unrewarded. This is a true story about sacrifice, hope, and how one moment of compassion can create ripples that change everything. Sarah Collins woke up at 5:30 in the morning, just like she did every single day. The alarm clock on her nightstand was old and scratched, but it still worked, and that was all that mattered. She reached over and turned it off before it could wake her 8-year-old daughter Emma, who was sleeping peacefully in the bed they shared in their tiny one-bedroom apartment. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed for a moment, rubbing her tired eyes. She had worked a double shift at the diner the night before, and her feet still ached. But there was no time to rest. Emma needed to get ready for school, and Sarah had to be at her morning cleaning job by 7. She looked over at her daughter, whose small chest rose and fell with each gentle breath. Emma's dark curls spread across the pillow like a halo. Sarah's heart filled with love and determination. Everything she did, every sacrifice she made, was for this beautiful little girl. Sarah quietly slipped out of bed and made her way to their small kitchen. The apartment was humble, to say the least. The paint on the walls was peeling in places, and the furniture was secondhand, but Sarah kept everything spotlessly clean. She took pride in their home, no matter how small it was. She started making breakfast with what little they had in the refrigerator. 2 eggs, some bread that was getting close to stale, and a little butter. She would make sure Emma ate well. Sarah could skip breakfast. She had done it many times before. As the eggs cooked, Sarah's mind wandered to their situation. It had been 3 years since Emma's father left. He had walked out without warning, leaving behind only a note and a mountain of debt. Sarah had been devastated, but she had no choice except to pick up the pieces and keep moving forward. She worked 3 jobs to make ends meet. There was the early morning cleaning job at an office building, the afternoon shift at Martha's Diner, and sometimes, when she could get the hours, an evening shift stocking shelves at the grocery store. Despite all this work, they barely scraped by. The rent was due in a week, and Sarah was still $200 short. At 6 o'clock, Sarah gently woke Emma. The little girl's eyes fluttered open, and she smiled when she saw her mother's face. "Good morning, sweetheart," Sarah whispered, brushing Emma's curls from her forehead. "Morning, Mama," Emma replied, her voice still thick with sleep. They went through their morning routine with practiced efficiency. Emma got dressed in her school uniform while Sarah packed her lunch with the few groceries they had: a peanut butter sandwich, an apple that was slightly bruised, and a small juice box. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. As Emma ate her breakfast, she talked excitedly about a school project on butterflies. Sarah listened with genuine interest, asking questions and encouraging her daughter's curiosity. These moments were precious to Sarah. No matter how tired she was, she always made time to really listen to Emma. At 6:45, they left the apartment and walked to the bus stop. It was a cold Tuesday morning in late October, and dark clouds hung heavy in the sky, threatening rain. Sarah pulled Emma's jacket tighter around her and wished she had enough money to buy her daughter a warmer coat. Winter was coming, and Emma was growing so fast. The bus arrived, and Sarah made sure Emma got on safely. She watched through the window as Emma found a seat and waved goodbye. Sarah waved back, her heart aching with love and worry. She stood there until the bus disappeared around the corner. Now it was time to get to her own job. The office building where she worked was on the other side of town, and she usually took the bus. But this morning, as she walked to her bus stop, the sky opened up, and rain began to pour down in sheets. Sarah didn't have an umbrella. She ran to take cover under the awning of a small shop, but she was already soaked. She checked her watch. If she didn't get moving soon, she would be late, and she couldn't afford to lose this job. That's when she saw the taxi pulling up to the curb across the street. Sarah's first instinct was to run for that taxi. She had exactly $12 in her wallet, enough to get her to work and still have a little left over. Taking a taxi was a luxury she could barely afford, but being late to work was a luxury she couldn't afford at all. She stepped out from under the awning and was about to cross the street when she saw him. A man in an expensive business suit came rushing around the corner, briefcase in hand, his phone pressed to his ear. Even from a distance, Sarah could see the stress on his face. He was drenched from the rain, and he looked like he was in a desperate hurry. He was also running straight for the same taxi. Sarah's feet froze on the curb. She watched as the man waved frantically at the taxi driver. The driver saw Sarah first and gestured to her, indicating the cab was hers if she wanted it. For a moment, Sarah stood there in the pouring rain, faced with a choice. She could take the taxi and get to work on time. She needed this job. Emma needed her to keep this job. But looking at this stranger, something in his expression struck her. He looked more than stressed. He looked broken. Sarah had seen that look before. She had worn it herself on the worst days after Emma's father left. It was the look of someone carrying a weight that was about to crush them. The taxi driver honked gently, waiting for her decision. Sarah took a deep breath, and before she could talk herself out of it, she waved the man over. "Please," she called out to him, raising her voice over the sound of the rain. "You take it. You look like you need it more than I do." The man stopped running and stared at her in disbelief. "Are you sure?" he asked, rain streaming down his face. "I'm sure," Sarah said, managing a smile. "Go ahead." The man hesitated for just a moment, then nodded gratefully. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "Thank you so much." He climbed into the taxi, and through the rain-streaked window, Sarah saw him mouth the words, "Thank you," one more time before the cab pulled away into the traffic. Sarah stood there on the sidewalk, completely soaked, watching the taxi disappear. She felt the cold rain running down her back and realized what she had just done. She had given away her only chance to get to work on time. A small voice in her head asked if she had just made a terrible mistake, but a larger voice, the one that sounded like her grandmother's, reminded her of something she had been taught as a child. "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." Sarah pulled her thin jacket tighter and started walking toward the bus stop. She would have to take the bus after all and hope that she wouldn't be too late. As she walked through the rain, she thought about Emma and about the example she wanted to set for her daughter. She wanted Emma to grow up knowing that kindness mattered, that helping others was more important than personal convenience, even if it cost her something. The bus ride seemed to take forever. Sarah sat in the back, her wet clothes clinging to her skin, watching the rain streak down the windows. She tried not to think about what her supervisor would say when she arrived late. When she finally got to the office building, she was 20 minutes behind schedule. She rushed through the lobby, her shoes squeaking on the polished floor, and headed straight for the cleaning supply closet. Her supervisor, Mrs. Brum Henderson, was waiting for her with her arms crossed and a disapproving expression on her face. "You're late, Sarah." "I know, Mrs. Henderson. I'm so sorry. The rain—" "I don't want to hear excuses," Mrs. Henderson interrupted. "This is the second time this month." "It won't happen again," Sarah promised, her heart pounding. "Please, I need this job." Mrs. Henderson looked at her for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she sighed. "Get to work." "But Sarah, one more late arrival, and I'll have to let you go. I can't make exceptions." "I understand. Thank you." Sarah grabbed her cleaning supplies and got to work, her hands shaking slightly as she started mopping the floors. She had come so close to losing this job. And for what? For helping a stranger who probably wouldn't even remember her face by tomorrow. But even as doubt crept in, Sarah couldn't bring herself to regret her choice. She had done what felt right in the moment, and she would have to trust that somehow things would work out. She had no idea how much that trust was about to be rewarded. The rest of Sarah's day unfolded like most of her days did, one exhausting hour after another. After finishing her morning cleaning job, she rushed to Martha's Diner for her afternoon shift. She barely had time to change into her waitress uniform in the small bathroom, her hair still damp from the morning rain. The diner was busier than usual. The rain had driven more people inside, looking for hot coffee and comfort food. Sarah moved between tables with practiced efficiency, taking orders, delivering food, refilling coffee cups, and forcing her tired feet to keep moving. "Miss, we've been waiting for 15 minutes. "Excuse me, this order is wrong. Can we get some more coffee over here?" The voices blended together into a constant buzz of demands. Sarah handled each one with patience and a smile, even though her body ached and her mind kept drifting to Emma. Her daughter would be getting out of school soon, and Sarah wouldn't be there to pick her up. Emma would go to Mrs. Hughes Patterson's apartment like she did every day, and the elderly neighbor would watch her until Sarah finished work. Sarah hated that she couldn't be there for Emma after school. She hated that she missed so many moments of her daughter's childhood because she was always working. But what choice did she have? During a brief lull in the afternoon rush, Sarah's coworker, Linda, pulled her aside. "You okay, honey? You look more tired than usual." Sarah managed a weak smile. "Just a long day. I gave away a taxi this morning to some businessman and ended up late to my cleaning job." Linda raised an eyebrow. "You gave away a taxi?" "Sarah, you can barely afford to take taxis yourself." "I know," Sarah admitted, "but he looked like he really needed it. He seemed so desperate." Linda shook her head with a mixture of admiration and concern. "You got too big a heart, girl. In this world, you've got to look out for yourself first." "Maybe," Sarah said quietly. "But I don't want to become someone who only thinks about herself. I don't want Emma to learn that from me." Before Linda could respond, the bell above the diner door chimed, signaling new customers, and they both got back to work. The afternoon stretched into evening. Sarah's shift was supposed to end at 6, but Martha asked her to stay an extra hour because another waitress had called in sick. Sarah agreed, even though it meant she would see even less of Emma today. She needed every dollar she could earn. By the time Sarah finally left the diner at 7 o'clock, she was completely drained. Her feet felt like they were on fire, and she could barely keep her eyes open. But she still had to pick up Emma from Mrs. Patterson's and get her daughter fed and ready for bed. When Sarah knocked on Mrs. Patterson's door, Emma flung it open and threw her arms around her mother's waist. "Mama, you're here!" Sarah hugged her daughter tightly, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair. This, right here, made everything worth it. "How was school, sweetheart?" Sarah asked as they walked back to their own apartment. "It was good. We learned about migration today. Did you know that monarch butterflies fly all the way to Mexico for the winter? That's thousands of miles." "That's amazing," Sarah said, genuinely interested despite her exhaustion. "Butterflies are stronger than they look." "Just like you, Mama," Emma said, squeezing her mother's hand. Sarah's throat tightened with emotion. She didn't feel strong. She felt like she was barely holding on. But she squeezed Emma's hand back and smiled. That night, after Emma was asleep, Sarah sat at their small kitchen table with a pile of bills spread out in front of her. She had a calculator, a pencil, and a growing sense of dread. The rent was due in 5 days. Even with the extra hours she had worked, she was still $150 short. She had already asked for advances on her paychecks. She had already sold everything she could spare. There was nothing left to cut from their already bare-bones budget. Sarah put her head in her hands and felt tears of frustration prick at her eyes. She was working so hard, doing everything she could, and it still wasn't enough. "Please," she whispered into the empty kitchen. "I just need a little help, just a little bit of hope." She didn't know if anyone was listening, but she prayed anyway. It was all she had left. 3 days later, on Friday afternoon, Sarah was cleaning the apartment when there was a knock at the door. She wasn't expecting anyone, and her first thought was that it might be the landlord coming to remind her about the rent. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and opened the door. Standing in the hallway with the last person she expected to see, the businessman from the rainy morning. He was wearing another expensive suit, this one charcoal gray, and he was holding a large manila envelope. For a moment, they both just stared at each other. "You," Sarah said, completely bewildered. What are you doing here?" The man smiled, and Sarah noticed that his eyes were kind. "My name is Jonathan Pierce. I've been looking for you for the past 3 days." "Looking for me? Why?" "Because I wanted to thank you," Jonathan said. "May I come in for just a moment? I promise I won't take much of your time." Sarah hesitated, then stepped aside to let him enter. She was suddenly very aware of how small and shabby the apartment was, especially compared to the obvious wealth this man represented. Jonathan looked around the apartment, but his expression showed no judgment, only understanding. "I'm sorry to show up unannounced," he said, "but after what you did for me, I had to find you. It took some effort. I went back to that street corner and asked around until I found someone who recognized you from your description. They told me you work at Martha's Diner, and the owner there was kind enough to give me your address." Sarah felt a flutter of nervousness. "I don't understand. It was just a taxi." "It was much more than that," Jonathan said quietly. He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "That morning, when you gave me your taxi, I was on my way to the hospital. My daughter had been in a serious car accident the night before. She was in surgery, and I had gotten the call at 4 in the morning. I was terrified, not thinking clearly, and I missed my ride." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God, is she okay?" "She is now," Jonathan said, and his eyes grew misty. "The surgery was successful. She's going to make a full recovery, but the doctors told me later that if I had arrived even 10 minutes later, I wouldn't have made it in time to sign the consent forms for a critical procedure they needed to perform. Those 10 minutes that you gave me," his voice cracked slightly, "they might have saved my daughter's life." Sarah felt tears spring to her own eyes. She had no idea. When she had given up that taxi, she had been thinking only about a stranger's obvious distress, not imagining the true weight of what he was carrying. "I'm so glad she's all right," Sarah managed to say. "I'm so glad you made it in time." "Because of you," Jonathan emphasized. "A complete stranger who was clearly struggling herself, if you don't mind me saying, gave up something she needed to help someone else. Do you know how rare that is?" Sarah didn't know what to say. She had just done what felt right. Jonathan held out the manila envelope. "I want to help you the way you helped me. Please, take this." Sarah looked at the envelope but didn't reach for it. "I didn't help you because I wanted something in return." "I know," Jonathan said gently. "That's exactly why I want to do this. Please." Reluctantly, Sarah took the envelope. She opened it and gasped. Inside was a check made out to her. When she saw the amount, her knees went weak. $10,000. "I can't accept this," Sarah said immediately, trying to hand it back. "This is too much. It's way too much." "It's not enough," Jonathan said firmly but kindly. "You gave me the most precious thing in the world, more time with my daughter. There's no amount of money that could truly repay that. But I want to help make your life easier, the way you made mine possible that morning." Sarah stared at the check, her mind reeling. $10,000. She could pay her rent. She could buy Emma a winter coat. She could breathe for the first time in years. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say you'll accept it," Jonathan replied. "Say you'll let someone help you for once." But Sarah's mind was spinning with possibilities and doubts. This was life-changing money. Could she really accept it? Sarah stood in her small living room, holding the check with trembling hands, unable to fully process what was happening. "There's more," Jonathan said gently. "I want to offer you something else, if you're interested." Sarah looked up at him, wondering what else could possibly come after this overwhelming gift. "I'm the CEO of Pearson Associates," Jonathan explained. "We're a consulting firm downtown. We're currently looking for an office manager, someone organized, hardworking, and trustworthy. From what I've learned about you in the past few days, you're exactly the kind of person we need." Sarah's eyes widened. "You're offering me a job?" "A real job, with real hours and real benefits," Jonathan confirmed. "Health insurance, paid vacation, retirement contributions. The salary would be $60,000 a year to start." Sarah actually had to sit down. $60,000 a year. That was more than she currently made working 3 jobs combined. "But I don't have a college degree," Sarah said, her practical side kicking in despite the surreal nature of the situation. "I don't have any office experience." "You've been managing 3 jobs while raising a daughter on your own," Jonathan pointed out. "You've been handling schedules, customers, and responsibilities that would overwhelm most people. Those are exactly the skills we need. Everything else we can teach you." "Why are you doing all this?" Sarah asked, tears now streaming freely down her face. Jonathan's expression was sincere and warm. "Because kindness deserves kindness. Because you helped me without thinking about what it would cost you. Because the world needs more people like you in it, and those people should be supported, not struggling." He pulled the business card from his pocket and handed it to her. "Think about it. Take the weekend. If you're interested in the job, call me on Monday. Either way, please keep the check. You earned it through simple human decency, which seems to be in short supply these days." After Jonathan left, Sarah stood in the middle of her apartment, still holding the check and the business card, wondering if she had somehow fallen asleep and was dreaming. The sound of the apartment door opening snapped her back to reality. Emma came bounding in from Mrs. Patterson's apartment. "Mama, you're home early." Sarah quickly wiped her tears and scooped her daughter into a fierce hug. "Emma, baby, something wonderful has happened." She sat Emma down and explained everything. The man from the rainy morning, his daughter's accident, the gift he had given them, and the job offer. Emma's eyes grew wider and wider as Sarah talked. When she finished, Emma threw her arms around her mother's neck. "Mama, does this mean you don't have to work 3 jobs anymore?" "It means things are going to get better, sweetheart," Sarah said, crying and laughing at the same time. "Things are going to get so much better." That weekend, Sarah made several important decisions. She deposited the check, paid the overdue rent, and bought Emma the warm winter coat she desperately needed. She also bought herself a simple professional outfit for her new job, the first new clothes she had purchased for herself in over 2 years. On Monday morning, Sarah called the number on Jonathan's business card and accepted the job offer. Her life changed dramatically after that. The new job was challenging but rewarding. Her coworkers were welcoming, and Jonathan turned out to be a kind and supportive boss. For the first time in years, Sarah had normal working hours. She could take Emma to school in the morning and pick her up in the afternoon. They could have dinner together every night. The financial pressure that had been crushing Sarah for so long gradually eased. She could pay bills on time. She could buy healthy groceries. She could even start saving a little money each month. But more than the money, more than the job, what changed was the hope. Sarah had spent so long just trying to survive that she had almost forgotten what it felt like to actually live, to have dreams and plans for the future. One evening, about 3 months after starting her new job, Emma came to her with a drawing she had made at school. It showed 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, holding hands under a rainbow. "That's us, Mama," Emma explained. "You're the tall one because you're strong, and I'm the little one. But we're both standing under the rainbow because good things happen to good people." Sarah hugged her daughter tight, overwhelmed with gratitude and love. "You know what, sweetheart? You're absolutely right." 6 months after that rainy Tuesday morning, Sarah's life was almost unrecognizable from what it had been before. She had settled into her role at Pearson Associates and was thriving. Her natural organizational skills and work ethic had made her invaluable to the company, and she had even received her first raise. Emma was flourishing too, with her mother home more often and the stress lifted from their household. Emma's grades had improved, and she had joined the after-school science club. The butterfly project she had been so excited about all those months ago had won 2nd place in the school science fair. Sarah had also been able to move them into a better apartment, nothing fancy, but it had 2 bedrooms, which meant Emma finally had her own room. The look on Emma's face when she saw her new bedroom for the first time was something Sarah would treasure forever. But perhaps the most surprising development came when Jonathan Pierce asked Sarah if she would be willing to share her story at a company event focused on community service and corporate values. At first, Sarah was hesitant. She didn't think of herself as special or her story as particularly remarkable. But Jonathan insisted that her simple act of kindness and what had come from it was exactly the kind of message people needed to hear. So Sarah found herself standing in front of a room full of Pearson Associates employees, sharing the story of that rainy morning. "I didn't give up that taxi because I thought something good would come from it," Sarah told the assembled group. "I did it because I saw another human being who needed help, and I had the ability to help him, even if it cost me something. That's all it was. One person helping another person." She paused, looking out at all the faces watching her. "But what I learned from this experience is that kindness creates ripples. When you help someone, you don't know where those ripples will go or what they might touch. That businessman I helped was able to be there for his daughter in her moment of need, and because he wanted to pay that kindness forward, he changed my life and my daughter's life. And now, hopefully, by sharing this story, maybe someone else will be inspired to help someone in their moment of need." The room erupted in applause, but Sarah wasn't finished. "I also learned that it's okay to accept help," she continued. "I was so used to struggling on my own, so used to the idea that I had to be strong and independent, that I almost didn't accept Jonathan's gift. But accepting help doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. We all need help sometimes. We all need kindness sometimes. After the event, several people came up to Sarah to thank her for sharing her story. One young woman told Sarah that she had been going through her own struggles and had been feeling hopeless, but hearing Sarah's story reminded her that things could change, that help could come from unexpected places. That night, Sarah went home to her new apartment and found Emma at the kitchen table, working on her homework. "How was your day, Mama?" Emma asked, looking up with those bright, curious eyes that never failed to fill Sarah's heart. "It was good, sweetheart," Sarah said, kissing the top of Emma's head. "I got to tell people about how much difference one small choice can make." "The taxi," Emma said knowingly. Sarah had told her daughter the whole story several times. "The taxi," Sarah confirmed, "and the kindness of a stranger who wanted to help us." "And your kindness first," Emma pointed out wisely. "You helped him before he helped you." Sarah smiled at her daughter's insight. "That's true. I guess the lesson is that we should help people whenever we can, even when it's hard, even when it costs us something, because you never know how much it might matter." Emma thought about this for a moment, then nodded seriously. "When I grow up, I want to help people too, just like you, Mama." "You already do help people, baby," Sarah said. "Every time you're kind to someone at school, every time you share, every time you share, every time you smile at someone who looks sad, you're helping." Kindness doesn't have to be big, it just has to be real. As Sarah watched Emma return to her homework, she thought about the journey they had been on. 6 months ago, she had been drowning in bills, exhausted from working 3 jobs and wondering how she would make it through another day. She had been at the end of her rope, and then one rainy morning, she had made a choice. She had chosen to help someone else, even though she desperately needed help herself. That choice had changed everything. Sarah had learned that the universe has a way of rewarding genuine kindness. Not always immediately, and not always in the way you expect, but goodness does come back. Help does arrive. Hope does return. She had also learned that vulnerability and strength aren't opposites. It took strength to give up that taxi when she needed it. It took strength to work 3 jobs and still smile at her daughter. And it took strength to accept help when it was offered, to allow someone else to be kind to her. Most importantly, Sarah had learned that one moment, one choice, one act of compassion can create ripples that spread far beyond what we can see. She had helped Jonathan get to the hospital in time to be with his daughter. Jonathan had helped Sarah and Emma escape the crushing burden of poverty. And now, by sharing her story, Sarah was helping to inspire others to choose kindness, even when it's difficult. These were the lessons Sarah wanted to pass on to Emma. That kindness matters, that helping others is never wasted, that accepting help is not weakness, and that hope can come from the most unexpected places. As Sarah tucked Emma into bed that night in her very own bedroom, Emma looked up at her mother and asked, "Mama, do you think the man's daughter is okay now?" "I do," Sarah said. "Jonathan told me she made a full recovery. She's back in college now, studying to be a doctor." "That's good," Emma said, snuggling under her covers. "I'm glad you helped her daddy get to her." "Me too, sweetheart, me too." Sarah kissed Emma goodnight and turned off the light. But she stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her daughter drift off to sleep in the soft glow of the nightlight. 6 months ago, Sarah had been standing in the rain watching a taxi drive away, wondering if she had just made a terrible mistake. Now, standing in the doorway of her daughter's bedroom in their new apartment, with a job she loved and a future that looked bright, Sarah knew with absolute certainty that she had made exactly the right choice, because kindness is never a mistake. Compassion is never wasted. And help, when we need it most, often comes from the most unexpected sources. All we have to do is be willing to give it and to receive it. Sarah's story teaches us powerful truths that resonate in our daily lives. When we extend kindness to others, even at personal cost, we create ripples of goodness that spread far beyond our immediate view. That rainy Tuesday morning, Sarah had no idea that her simple act of compassion would save a father's chance to be with his critically injured daughter, or that it would transform her own life in return. The lesson here is profound. Our smallest acts of kindness can have the largest impacts. We never know what burdens others are carrying or what our help might mean to them. Sarah was struggling herself, yet she chose to see beyond her own needs to help someone else. That choice, made in a single moment, changed two families forever. This story also reminds us that goodness begets goodness. When we plant seeds of compassion, we may not see the harvest immediately, but it will come. Sarah didn't help that stranger expecting a reward. She did it because it was the right thing to do. Yet the universe found a way to reward her genuine kindness in ways she never could have imagined. We also learn that accepting help is just as important as giving it. Sarah almost refused Jonathan's gift because of pride and disbelief, but accepting help with grace allowed her to break free from the cycle of struggle and provide better for her daughter. Sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is allow others to be kind to us. Finally, this story teaches us that we are never truly alone in our struggles. When we reach our breaking point, when we've done all we can and it still doesn't seem like enough, help can arrive from the most unexpected places. We must maintain faith, continue doing good, and remain open to the possibility that our circumstances can change. If Sarah's story touched your heart today, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that celebrate the power of human kindness and the miracles that happen when we choose compassion over convenience. Remember, you never know how your one small act of kindness today might change someone's life tomorrow. Choose compassion. Choose to help. Choose hope. And when help comes your way, choose to receive it with gratitude. Thank you for watching, and may you both give and receive abundant kindness in your life.